Hey, let's talk about my thoughts on episode 5 of The Wheel of Time season 3, Tel'aran'rhiod. Welcome back to Unraveling the Pattern. I'm Lauren. Thanks for being here. I just want to quickly shout out, thank you all so much for your support lately. I hit 40K subscribers. Woohoo, that's great. Thank you. I have a goal to hit 50K by the end of the season, so please subscribe if you haven't. And as a reminder, these videos are just me kind of off the cuff, talking about my thoughts and reactions to the episodes as they come out. But the videos that I work really hard on that I would love for you to watch are my Unraveled videos or, episode breakdowns. I put a lot of thought and time into those videos, so please be sure to watch those. I'm really proud of my latest breakdown of episode 4 that came out. I put a lot of effort into that. I made some really cool timelines and graphics, so if you haven't seen that, check that out. All right, as usual, when I do these reviews, I usually talk about the good, the bad, the confusing, the great, the surprising, and for this video, I'm also going to address some theories and speculation about what might be coming. For the first part of this video, this is just going to be my spoiler-free reactions. You're welcome to watch. It will only be show-related spoilers. But at the end of the video, I'll give another warning, and I will be talking a little bit about specific spoilers and ideas I have for how the show might be handling some of the things they're introducing. And those are probably going to be full book spoilers, so I'll give you that warning when the time comes. Anyway, let's get into the good. It's really hard to compete with last week's episode. I mean, episode 4 to me was absolutely a 10 out of 10. If you haven't seen my review about that, go and watch that. I just loved everything about that episode. I really couldn't find hardly any fault with it. This episode I also loved, but just not at the same level. So it's hard for me. To me, I feel like episode 4 of this season is kind of the bar. It's 10 out of 10 now. So I really don't know that I can ever rate another episode that highly again. I hope I can, but that was just perfect Wheel of Time to me. So with that being said, there was a lot to like about this episode. Honestly, solid. Probably my second favorite episode of the season so far. I'd probably give this a solid 9, maybe an 8.5, as I'll discuss some of the things that tiny nitpicks that I had, but some of the things that I really loved about this episode. I loved, well, let's look at my list. I know I have a list here. I should probably check it. Making a list. He's checking it twice. Okay, right off the bat, that opening scene with Moiraine using the Tel'aran'rhiod for her first time and the way that that was all choreographed and the visual effects just keep getting better and better. I have loved how they're doing the One Power this season. The threads of the One Power are just so beautiful. And that aerial shot after she used the Tel'aran'rhiod where she had created these sort of like sand dunes that created this sort of spiral effect around her with her kind of in the center. I really loved the sort of visual symbolism there that she has all these decisions that she has to make. She's at the center of making these really complex decisions, and based on what she decides can cause these ripple effects. I thought that was really beautiful. One thing that I found really interesting about that was the way that the Tel'aran'rhiod affected her. I won't talk about that too much more here. I'll talk about that in my speculation side of things. But yeah, overall, just really love that opening sequence. And speaking of Moiraine, I'll just stick with her for a minute. I loved the Lan and Moiraine sequences, the way that they played off of each other. It just really felt good. I love how Daniel Henney and Rosamund Pike play off of each other. They have such great chemistry. And anyway, I loved every scene they were together, the way they drink together, the way that she was all worried, like, I'm going to die for Rand to live. And Lan was just like, well, is it going to happen tonight? She was like, no. I just thought that was all really great. Another thing that I really liked about this episode was the Swan and Moiraine stuff. Now, I was a big proponent of what many of us called the ruse theory from season 2. I was sure that there was something else going on behind the scenes, that Swan and Moiraine were kind of in cahoots, and that the way a lot of the things played out in Cairhien in season 2 were intended, except what they didn't anticipate was that Lanfear would show up and kind of throw a wrench in things. This episode to me pretty much confirms that I was wrong, that many of us who loved the ruse theory were wrong, and it turns out that Swan was just kind of, it was hubris. She just kind of was affected by her political seat in the White Tower, and she made some decisions that were not great decisions. But boy, did it hit hard when Moiraine was like, we each had a job to do. I was supposed to find the Dragon Reborn. You were supposed to prepare the tower for him. Now, I thought that was interesting because technically that's not what she was told to do by Gitara Moroso, the seer or the woman who had the foretelling 20 years ago. She was told to prepare the world to follow. Whether or not Swan really did her part in that, it remains to be seen, but certainly Moiraine and Swan had a bit of a falling out, but boy, that moment when they kind of came back together and they were like, we had some sucky things happen in this life. Things didn't work out the way we wanted, but we will always find each other in the next life. I thought that was really beautiful. And something I noticed on rewatch is Moiraine said there are 2 things I know for certain, but she never really shared the second thing as far as I remember. She shared that the White Tower must kneel to the Dragon Reborn, that was essential. And I'm a little bit worried with all the stuff that's been going on behind the scenes with Swan and Elaida, how that's all going to play out, because Elaida's clearly pushing to cage the dragon, which can't be good. But that was such an important message. But did Moraine share her second message? I got the impression that the second message was, I have to die. But she did kind of hint at that fact that maybe we won't be able to be together in this life, but maybe in another life. And I thought that was really beautiful. And there is this concept in the Wheel of Time, not necessarily with Swan and Moraine in the books, but I love this concept in the Wheel of Time where there are certain souls, certain heroes of the Horn in particular, who love each other in every life. They find each other in every life. They are just completely linked to love each other pretty much every life. And I thought that was such a beautiful idea for Swan and Moraine, and really brought home the sacrifices they've made because of that fateful day where they went to Guittara's study. And that moment when Swan was like, I wish we'd never gone to Guittara's study. And Moraine sort of jokingly was like, yeah, we could be living in a fish hut. But truly, that is what they wanted for each other. And so very heartbreaking. But I love that they recognize those sacrifices and that they're deepening that relationship, especially because I hated how it left off in season 2. I'm still not loving the fact that they are kind of apart, but it was nice to see them reunite in this episode. I really just liked the Aiel stuff we got in this episode. Much more toned down from the last episode, but we learned more about some of their minor cultural things. The fact that they can have multiple wives and that they have these polyamorous relationships sometimes. Thought that was interesting. Some of the culture related to how they eat and how Aviendha was kind of forced to be with Rand as part of her Wise One training. I really loved all that. And a lot of that was very accurate to the books. And I also really just loved the deepening of Lan's story with Melindra. Just a minor scene where she sort of was reminding him that he is a king and that the land that he was supposed to be the king of was a beautiful place filled with laughter. That was all really great for me. Another thing I'll say about Lan is I just think it's so important to give Lan this kind of context. He was a baby when he left Malkier. He doesn't remember what it was like to live in the very kingdom he's supposed to be the king of. And so I think it's so great to have people who do remember it reminding him of what Malkier was and giving him this motivation that maybe he should be the king. Maybe the people will rally around him. I think that's really brilliant writing. Stuff that wasn't as clear in the books, in my opinion, up front, but very important stuff. Another minor thing that I love this episode is Faile and Bane and Chiad kind of teaming up. There was moments where they ran into the village together to report some news. And then later, Faile kind of showed her prowess with the knife when Perrin was trying to protect her. And Bane and Chiad were like, yeah, she's coming with us. I thought that was great. Perfect setup for Faile, Bane, and Chiad for the future. Another minor thing that I absolutely loved in this episode was the way that Nynaeve was different on the boat from everyone else, and how the Windfinder and the Wave Mistress were kind of like, yeah, you don't know how to keep your footing loose because you're used to being in the mountains. You're so firm in your way of thinking. And I thought that was really great way to kind of explain part of what also is blocking Nynaeve from being able to channel. She's so firmly rooted in these traditional views that she can't let go and kind of sway with the sea. I wish they had spent a little bit more time explaining just how powerful the Wave Mistresses are with their ability to weave these huge weaves, these massive flows of the One Power. Maybe we'll learn more about that still. All said and done, considering the Sea Folk are a fairly minor part of the books and everything, I thought they were introduced well. I actually really liked how Elaine later was dreaming of being able to weave the One Power like that. Kind of a hint that she does learn from the Windfinders like she does in the books. Mat and Min, I just love them together. I don't consider them a romantic item. Some people have suggested that maybe Mat and Min will be together. I don't personally see it that way. I see it as like a brother or sister kind of a thing. One of my favorite little moments with them was when Min is introduced to Elaine and Nynaeve, and Nynaeve's like, wait a minute, you were the seer in Faldara. And then Nynaeve turns to Mat and she's like, should we trust her? And Mat took a minute, he paused, and then he said, yeah, we can trust her. And the look on Min's face, I didn't even realize that I was kind of holding my breath. Like, that was really beautiful. She was so thankful for Mat's acceptance of her. That was such an important moment for her. So anyway, I liked all those little moments. I think it's really exciting that we're getting things like the Sea Folk, things I honestly didn't know that we'd ever get. Okay, obviously the best parts of this episode were the Tel'aran'rhiod stuff. We finally got a lot of lore related to dreamwalking. It didn't feel heavy-handed to me. I really liked how that was handled. I particularly liked the idea of the brass pin in the candle and that it would clang on the plate to tell you that your time was up. It would kind of wake you from the dream. I thought that was a really smart idea. They kind of do things like that in the books, but not quite that clearly. And so I thought that was smart. Obviously, Egwene sort of was powered up in the dream world a lot faster than she is in the books. And it is one of the things she does in the books where the Wise Ones make her swear not to go into the dream without them. And she just kind of does anyway. And I thought that was really cool to see. There were obviously some really strong consequences to that. But that being said, she definitely is overpowered at this point. I mean, it took, I think, 2 or 3 books for her to get to the point that she seems to be at in this one episode, but I'm going to let that slide. I mean, it is a show. They have to move things forward. And the way they're handling the dream world is really exciting to me. I'll talk more about that in a minute. I'll talk more about Maxim and Alana in the next section, but I did like some of the elements between Maxim and Alana. I especially liked when he returned and he said, I have you. I have you. I thought that was handled really well. That being said, there were some things that I didn't quite like about this episode. And again, these are not necessarily like reviews saying it's a bad episode, just things that as a book fan I had trouble with. So let's get into it. Let's get into the bad and the ugly, or confusing. When I originally did my full season review, and by the way, yes, I have seen the full season. I've seen people in the comments who clearly have just found my videos recently, and they're like, what? Who is this random guy that got access to the full season? I think that's kind of funny because if they paid attention, I've been doing pretty much only Wheel of Time content for 5 straight years. And so it's just kind of funny to me when people are like, who is this guy? But anyway, I will never spoil anything beyond the episode that we're talking about. So yes, I have seen the full season, but I will not spoil anything beyond this episode. So with that in mind, though, when I did my full review, one of the things that I kind of alluded to is that I didn't like how much time was being spent on characters like Alana and Maxim, especially at the expense of scenes from characters like Perrin or even Fail for that matter, or of course Rand or Matt. But I have to say, on rewatch of this episode, that didn't bother me nearly as much. And I actually feel like Alana and Maxim, some of the things that they're doing here are really important and need some time. And another thing that's important here is that we did learn that Alana and Maxim, well, Alana is there because she feels like there's something really powerful about the two rivers. They have the old blood of Manetheren there. This is where literally the Dragon Reborn came from, where Egwene and Nynaeve, the two strongest channelers they found in 1,000 years, came from, where the horn sounder Matt came from. Like, obviously this is an important place. That's her reason for being there. I like that. I think that Alana recognizes the Black Aja was way more prepared than she was, and she's supposed to be prepared for the last battle. What better way to do that than to go and recruit people for her cause, for the light? So I know I said this is the bad section, but now I'm talking about more good things. The thing that I didn't like about all this was there was a little too much time, in my opinion, spent on Maxim and Alana, but mostly the thing that I will just say straight up, the thing that was most ugly to me about this episode. And again, this is not really this episode is bad for these reasons. It's just something I didn't like. And that is killing off Natty Cawthon. Now, there are a lot of reasons for why I don't like this, but the main reason is, honestly, is a personal reason. Juliet Howland, the actress who plays Natty Cawthon, is one of the sweetest, kindest cast members who is so supportive of this fandom. She shows up for live streams. She shows up in my comments. She shows up in my DMs, just saying the nicest, kindest things. And I'll be honest, when I watched this episode several weeks ago, when I was first given access to the season, as soon as they revealed that she had been killed, I paused the episode and I reached out to her on Twitter and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did this to you. And I was just like, I am so sad that they killed you off. You're so wonderful. Why did they do this to you? And she was very gracious and she was like, yeah, it was really hard. It was hard dealing with that. But she was obviously very kind and gracious. And I hadn't even gotten to the point later where we see Matt in his dream, which I'll talk more about this more. But that moment, it was so cathartic for me being able to hear her say she was proud of Matt. The reason I think this is ugly is because it's awful. And this is actually a good thing for me because once again, the show has made the White Cloaks more interesting, more scary, and they've raised the stakes a bit. They killed a character who didn't die in the books. And so anyway, to me, it's ugly because it was awful, but it was meant to be. It was actually a really great moment. I think it was smart writing. I just am so sad that she's gone. And anyway, it's sad. That being said, I do like that Matt's sisters were part of this, and one of them channeled, it seems, which is very fascinating to me. There is hints of them being able to channel in later books, but it's very minor and not really talked about that much. And so I'm kind of interested to see if this is going to go anywhere. But yeah, just devastating in the best way. And by far, the thing I like the least in this season so far is this idea that Rand is really into Lanfear. I understand why. Look, we've all seen Lanfear. She's amazing. She's one of the best parts of the show. But it just creeps me out that Rand is supposedly still technically in a relationship with Egwene, and he's doing this stuff. Now, yeah, you could argue, well, she's manipulating him, or it's just a dream. You can't control what people do in their dreams. It feels to me like Rand absolutely knows what he's doing. He knows it's real. I'm not saying Rand is necessarily a dreamwalker, but it seems to be hinting that he is. I mean, he goes to that place in his dreams often to contemplate. Lanfear makes mention of that. You know, like, I knew you'd be here because you come here all the time. It feels to me like Rand is intentionally going to these places in the dream, that he knows what he's doing, that he's at least partially aware that he's dreaming. And so anyway, it's skeevy to me. I don't like it. And then, of course, when Egwene saw what Lanfear was doing, it just made me so uncomfortable. But obviously they're trying to set something up. I'm sure there'll be more about this coming up. But anyway, that's by far my least favorite part of the episode. All right, let's move on to the great and the surprising. Something that really surprised me about this episode was Adeleas's character, Varen's sister. There was something about her that was really intriguing to me. And I don't want to get too far into spoilers, so I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to have a theories and speculation section in a minute that will be a little bit more spoilery. So if you want to avoid those specifics, I'm not going to get more into that. But I just will say, I'm not so sure that Adeleas is as messed up in the head as they want us to think. I think there might be something interesting going on there. And I already talked about this, but man, the relationship with Swan and Moraine, the way they're setting it up so that they will always find each other in every life, it was beautiful. It was touching. I think it's an added depth that I personally really loved. And their acting, I'll be honest, as amazing as episode 4 was, and yes, I did get a little bit emotional at times, something about the acting between Rosamund and Sophie, that pure love that they shared with each other really touched me and got me emotional. I just absolutely loved their acting. I loved how that was presented, the swelling of the music, definitely one of my favorite elements of this episode. And by far, the stuff I loved the most of this episode were just the little dreams that Egwene went and visited. I felt such swells of emotion during all of these moments. When Egwene visited Perrin and Hopper was there, it just like touched me. Now, one little thing I would have liked is if Perrin noticed Egwene in that moment, but then the fact that Perrin is dreaming of Fael, they're clearly trying to kind of ease the audience into this idea that Perrin's moving on from his wife. And I thought that was actually really beautifully done. And by the way, I called it in the teaser, that shot of someone forging the axe. Everyone was saying, that's not Perrin. That's not Perrin's arm. Yeah, it's a close-up. It probably wasn't his arm. It was probably an actual blacksmith, but it was meant to be him. And I was surprised that it was in the dream. I thought that was going to be a real shot from him doing it in the real world, but still, that just really touched me, especially the fact that Hopper was there just hopping around. That was so beautiful. And then the way that Egwene went on to other dreams, and she shouted for Nynaeve, but couldn't get her attention because Nynaeve was mentoring her daughter. Now, not her real daughter, but the daughter from her accepted test, Elnor. Just another beautiful moment for me that I just love so much. And again, when she visited Matt, when Natty Cawthon said, "I'm proud of you" to Matt, that just touched me so much. And as I kind of mentioned before, it was very cathartic for me because Natty has passed. She won't get that chance to say that to her son in this life. And so it just really hit me hard. And I was thankful that Juliet Howland got a chance to reprise her role in the episode and to say that to Matt. I thought that was so beautifully handled. And as sad as it is to see Juliet leave the show and to no longer have Natty Cawthon in the show, it was really, really touching to see that she got to do that with Matt. I'm sure that that was hopefully a good moment for her as well. Okay, now I have a few theories and some speculation that I'd like to get to, but these are pretty spoiler heavy, so I'd really recommend, if you haven't read the books, to probably bow out now. Thanks so much for watching. Please consider supporting me on Patreon like these awesome people. Remember to like the video. Please help me get to 50,000 subscribers, and we'll see you later. All right, let's talk about some minor theories and speculation. I never know how much to spoil in these videos, but I'll just say really quickly, there's two things that have come to my mind, theories that I've been really excited to talk about, and I'm probably going to make an actual like theory video about one of these. The first is Varen's sister, Adeleas. I love how they handled her this episode. There's this moment where she's acting like she can't quite drink the tea, or she's worried that it's hot. And then when Varen goes and talks to Lyanna and Swan, there's this moment where she suddenly focuses and she drinks the tea like she's definitely paying attention. And it dawned on me, one of the things that I have really missed from the books, specifically related to Varen's character, is Varen seems to come across as very unaware of what's going on, sort of like ditzy and in her head and kind of in the clouds all of the time. As the books unfold, you kind of realize this is just a facade she's putting on because she's actually paying very close attention. She's extremely smart, but she acts to others like she's not really aware of anything other than the books in her head. It dawned on me during this episode, they might be replacing Adeleas as that side of Varen. She and Varen might be working together. Maybe Varen isn't aware. It's unclear to me after this episode. But I do think that there's something going on where maybe she isn't quite as injured in the head as we are supposed to believe. Maybe Varen did something to help heal her. I don't know. But anyway, it's intriguing to me, so I wanted to bring that up. But the really big theory, and to be honest, I kind of hesitate to bring it up here because I think this is a really great theory, and I do want to do a specific video about this once the season ends, but hear me out. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. So, the Sarkhanen and Callandor. This isn't even necessarily related to this episode fully, but there was a moment when Moraine was using the Sarkhanen in this episode where she started to appear to burn out. The burnout kind of look that we've seen kind of started to go up her arms. It was a little bit visible in her face. then Lan intervened and helped her. Okay, we haven't seen Kalendor yet, but here are the things we've learned about Kalendor in the show. Not all of this is book accurate, especially related to the Secarnan. The Secarnan and the way that they're presenting it in the show is completely different from the book. So you need to understand that as I talk about this. This is just me theorizing, but the more and more I think about it, the more I believe this is what they're doing. So here's what I'm thinking. We learned in the show that Kalendor was, one, put in the Stone of Tyr by the dragon, and two, the wards that surround Kalendor can only be undone by the dragon. Both of those things were stated clearly in the past few episodes. Okay, so my assumption is when Rand eventually gets to Kalendor, he will be the only one who can take it, just like in the books. But the idea that they have this sort of like wards that are tailored to his DNA, so to speak, or to his soul, whatever you want to call that Lews Therin himself put it there, is really intriguing to me, because what happened with the Secarnan in episode 4? Moiraine seemed almost attracted to it, like she was pulled toward it. And to me, this was sort of related to that scene in book 2 where Rand is pulled towards the Chodan Kal statue in Cairhien, and he almost like falls off a cliff because he's so enamored by what he feels coming from it. I feel like they were trying to kind of do that with the Secarnan. But the fact that Moiraine just intuitively knew how to channel and open up the tree and pull it out, the only other person we've seen do that is Latra Posay de Sume from the Age of Legends. She was able to hold the Secarnan, but also later when she was much older in the Aiel visions, she channeled, opened the tree, and pulled it out. So my theory is this. This is not book lore by any means. As a matter of fact, in the books, there are some people who theorize that Latra is Egwene, that Latra's soul is reborn as Egwene. But in the show, I think what they're trying to tell us is that Latra Posay is Moiraine, that they are the same soul, that she warded the Secarnan for her future incarnation to come and get it, and that the Secarnan and Kalendor will be equally important at the end of the series in facing the Dark One. So that's my theory. Specifically, I bet you when we see Kalendor for the first time, and I promise you, I don't know this from having seen it, I am just saying, I think when we see Kalendor for the first time, there's going to be some sort of sphere-shaped hole in it, and the Secarnan is going to lock into place into Kalendor. So that's my theory. I think that Moiraine literally was the only person who could unward the Secarnan and take it, that it was placed there for her. And I think that Kalendor will be the same for Rand. And this is all foreshadowing to help us better understand Kalendor when the time comes. So anyway, that's my theory. What do you think? Am I crazy? Let me know in the comments. As always, thank you for watching. And until next time, let the dragon ride again on the winds of Prime.